Best of r/malicious compliance episode 41. There's a bus terminal on my way home, and I usually pass by it every day. A few years ago, I was walking home and saw a woman struggling with her luggage. It was raining and the ground was slippery, so I headed over to help. One of her bags fell off her pile and I reached out and caught it before it landed on the wet ground. The woman turned around and screamed at me to keep my hands off her stuff, so I smiled at her and promptly dropped her bag into the puddle. She called me a bitch, but it was worth it. To clarify, it was raining and the ground was wet and puddle-why. I did not actively look for a puddle to throw her bag into. I simply let go of it when she screamed at me. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for reading. Thank you. Next. At the time of the story, it was the summer between my 3rd and 4th years attending a state university's business school. I had been working in various bars, restaurants, and nightclubs throughout my time at college to cover the expenses my scholarships didn't cover. I had, at this point in time, done almost every job in those types of establishments and was constantly trying to expand that, because my intended career path, which I did not end up in that career at all, was in the industry and I wanted to know every aspect of it. This story is about what happened when I left a prior employer who said they weren't going to train me on bar because they had no need for more bartenders. It was the next position to learn for me, and took my first bartending position. I got hired to bartend at this steakhouse restaurant. It was a pretty slow place. I get hired just after the spring semester ended. I had signed up to take a summer class though, and I let the manager know that when I applied for the job. I let the manager know what date the summer class was going to start and gave him a copy of my class schedule along with an updated sheet with my availability 3 weeks in advance. I reminded him of it again the next week and he said he needed a copy of my class schedule or my updated availability, so I provided him with another copy. Same thing the week before classes started. The schedule went up for the week. Wouldn't you know it, I'm working every single time I have class that week. I go to the manager. I remind him what we had discussed and that he needs to find someone else to cover those shifts. He says I should have provided him with a copy of my class schedule or written notice of the change in my availability. I remind him that I did so 3 times in the weeks leading up to this, and I reiterate that he needs to find someone else to work those shifts. He tells me that's not going to happen and I need to be there to cover those shifts. I tell him the best I can do is to come by after class and work after class is over, which will mean there will be 2 hours when neither the manager on duty will have to cover the bar, the day shift bartender will have to stay late, or there will be no bartender. Manager does not like this. He tells me I need to be more responsible. I respond and tell him that I am being responsible. I'm putting my education and future above a single bartending job that I've only had for a few weeks, and that I am not going to sacrifice my education and future because he doesn't want to deal with the change in my availability that he knew would be coming when he hired me. I make it clear that my education is my first priority and that if he wishes to see a demonstration of whether or not his need to have someone cover that shift is higher on my priority list than my education, then he can leave me on the schedule as it is. Boss responds and says that's insubordination and tell me that if I'm not going to be there on time, don't bother showing up at all. So I don't bother showing up for any more shifts after that day, even on the days before classes started. I got an angry phone call of course, and just said that I decided to do exactly as I was told. Since I already knew I wasn't going to show up on time for those shifts, I just wouldn't bother to show up at all anymore. The restaurant was closed less than 6 months after that. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that poor management played a substantial part in its failure. Thank you. Next. Last night was my last night at my current place of employment and I am moving on to a much nicer place, with triple the cost of plates to boot. It's slow toward the end of course and when it's slow my mind goes blank easier for some reason. I forget to bring this guy's salad out before his meal. Shit happens I guess but I want to make it right. He says he doesn't want it anymore which is understandable. There's a 99-cent upcharge to get a salad and once it's in an order that line item can't be changed. So I decide to go above and take off their appetizer, around $9. I bring the ticket explaining what I did because of the salad mistake and think it's going to be alright. I run off to do side work then come back and the guy is staring at his bill, obviously mad. SG equals salad guy. SG, why is my salad still on here? Me, oh well we can't change that item once it's in, but that's why I took off your Quizo dip. SG, why am I paying for something I didn't get? I immediately think fuck it, it's literally my last table here. Me, well you're not paying for something you did get, Sue. SG, would have charged me if I got corn. Me, no that's not an upcharge. SG, so make this corn. Me, that order literally cannot be changed once it's in the system. That's why I took off the Quizo, you're saving much more. We go back and forth for a bit and I'm honestly more aggressive than I would have been any other night. SG, I'm not going to pay for something I didn't get. Light bulb. Me, okay then. I take the bill back and head to the computer. I do the only thing we can do to change that line item. Delete the whole order, ring it all in again as do not make and make his side corn instead of the salad, just as he asked. Except this time, I left the Quizo dip on, making the new bill about $8 higher than the one I originally tried to give him. I go back to the table and show him that I changed it. He is livid that I put the Quizo back on. Me, I thought you wanted your bill to reflect what you got, so I made that happen. SG, get your manager. I go get him and explain the situation. He's actually pretty chill, so gets it entirely, last table and all. He talks to them and takes a lot more just the salad and Quizo off because that's what managers do. But there was no ill will toward me and we laughed about it later. Fuck you salad guy. Thank you. Next. So I'm very bad at storytelling, but here it goes. I worked at a gas station, so we sold cigarettes, like a ton. People told me we have the cheapest, so I think that's why. Anyway, I was working overnight when a guy came in and asked for 5 cartons of Newport Short. Carton equals 10 cigs, and running low on cigarettes and trying to keep some for other customers. I told him we don't have much left and we could only sell him 2. He agreed and walked out. Had to do this a few times. I don't know when or where, but someone called it in and complained that I did not sell them 5 cartons. This never got brought until I got in trouble a few months after. I got written up for not cleaning the cabinets, but with that write-up was a different one underneath. Yep, the guy in didn't sell 5 cartons too. So I got written up 3 months prior and just learned about this. I said nothing and signed the papers, but this is where the malicious compliance came in. No matter how many customers ask for, I always delivered. 6 cartons, no problem. The manager noticed how low we were on cigarettes when she tried to stock up. We were cigarette empty for days until the truck came in and we had to tell customers that we didn't carry any, and the next day a meeting was set up and they told us if you like you're selling them too much, tell them you have fewer or none at all. Guy walks up the next day asking for 7 cartons. I don't think that's too much. Sorry for bad formatting, I'm on mobile. Thank you. Next. I worked at a gear cutting factory for a few summers while studying at university. It was minimum wage and they just moved me about the place wherever I was needed, but it was easy work and kept me busy. I spent a few weeks working in the inspection department learning to use tools which test the quality of gears that were cut. Usually we just test a sample, and if every piece in the sample is within tolerance then we move on. If some pieces are slightly out of tolerance and others are okay, we might contact the customer and ask if they are acceptable at a discounted rate or something. In this case, however, we had a batch of about 1,000 tiny gears, each the size of a pea, that needed to be within very strict tolerances. I tested 50 or so, and every piece was way out. The batch was ruined. No idea why. That was down to the gear cutters. But the bottom line was that someone made a mistake and they would have to be scrapped. I informed the senior inspectors about this. Normally they are lovely guys and I had nothing against them, but that day they were particularly stressed with their own work and didn't want to spend time coming up with different work for me. So they told me to check every single gear in case any of them were salvageable. So, I spent the next 2 days manually testing every single gear in a batch of 1,000 and carefully noting the results in a spreadsheet. As expected, every single gear was faulty. Oh well, still got paid. Thank you. Next. On mobile, so sorry for formatting/spelling errors. I'm a sophomore in high school and in my gym class we've started our climbing unit. A good example of this is a rock wall. Today in class, we were doing this giant ladder where the parts that go across were about 6 feet apart. Very difficult. The way this ladder works is 2 people climb up to the top while working together. Communication. As with every climbing activity, there is a belay team attached to the other side of the rope with a harness and clips. The belay team is on the ground. Okay, now that the background is out of the way, let's get on with the story. We start the climbing ladder and the person climbing is this kid who we will call Dave. Dave is one of those kids that hangs out with the idiot popular people. You know, the people who are popular for acting like idiots. So Dave's climbing up with another kid, who we'll call Tyler. My friends and I are the belayers, 6 of us. Dave and Tyler are not communicating very well, so they aren't succeeding. Now you have to understand that the belay team needs to leave a tiny amount of slack in the rope. Makes it easier. Dave, thinking it'll be easier if the rope is taut, yells pull. After making it more taut, he's still complaining that they're not pulling hard enough. The belay team is not supposed to carry the climber up. I say to my friends, okay guys, pull as hard as you can. We pull and then Dave starts complaining that his nuts hurt. Loudly complaining. Us belayers laugh a little and go back to correctly belaying. Hope you enjoy that quick malicious compliance story. Have a great day. Thank you. Next. Long time lurker. First time poster in this sub. Sorry if this doesn't fall into the malicious side of things. Please direct me where it could be better suited. TL. Doctor at the bottom. Anyway, let's begin. Backstory. I live in the UK and rent my house as I'm too poor and the property market is insanely pricey, especially in the southeast. Summer 2019. There was a change in the law to help people like me, private renters, to reduce the cost of living and start saving for our own bricks and mortar. This story takes place around that time. Front story. My rental agreement goes through an estate agent, who charges a fee to both myself and my landlord for the privilege of handling the contracts. Essentially, all they do is change the dates on the contract, bump up the price by £15 and eat a fat slice of cake. They refuse to give me a contract with longer than 1 year, so they can cash in on the regular. This renewal of contracts costs me £75 each time. I have no idea how much they charge my landlord. Last year, however, the laws changed. One of these law changes was that agents are no longer allowed to charge me the renewal fee. Great, right? Well, it gets better. The law changes on the 1st of July and my contract renews on the 1st of September. That means I save £75 this year. Extra beer money. Actual story. The 4th of June. I get a letter from the estate agents asking me to confirm my renewal at current rent and £15. Confirm within 14 days and pay £75 renewal fee. If they have not heard from me in 14 days, they will consider it as my notice to vacate the property and will advertise the property as available to let. Hold up, my contract doesn't expire for nearly another 3 months. Why are they asking me to renew so soon? I immediately see what's going on here. Time to play the game. The 10th of June. I respond, asking why the rent has gone up again. Their reply states that the rental market has improved in the past 10.5 months. They also issue the same vague threat of re-advertising my home and include the clause your new contract must be signed within 10 days of you receiving it if I do wish to renew. Remember that bit. The 16th of June. I say fine. But why am I being asked to sign a renewal when I still have so long left on my current contract? For context, I only have to give 30 days if I want to end my contract at any time and vacate the property. Their response was, we are getting ahead of our contracts, so as not to create a backlog of work. Yay, right. This back and forth eats up a few days. Eventually, I run out of deflection tactics and they send out the contracts. We receive them on the afternoon of the 21st of June. I do the maths. I sign the new contract within 10 days. Well, I actually sign it on the 10th day, the 1st of July at 9 AM. The law changed at midnight, just hours before. They can no longer, legally, ask me to pay the £75 renewal. I send the contracts back and wait for the fallout. I half expected to get a late fee, or some other bull poo so they can scrape that fee back from me. I don't hear anything from them for a while, so assume that I've played it perfectly. Late July, I get an email. They require my landlord to get a survey on the property to check the energy economy rating of the house. The cost of this survey, you guessed it, £75. Luckily it comes out of his pocket and not mine. Poor bloke. TL. Doctor, Estate agents ask me to renew my contract within 10 days and pay a £75 fee. The law changes at the end of that month, so I delay with query letters for as long as possible and get sent my contract 9 days before the end of the month. I wait 10 days and send back the contracts with no renewal fee. Edit. Typo. Changed the 1st of June to the 1st of July.